Madam Clerk, call the next item.
Citizen inquiries. Item E, request to address the Board of County Commissioners regarding Kansas Open Records Act issues regarding the expenditure of taxpayer funds by the Greater Wichita Economic Development Commission and Wichita Downtown Development Commission.
Good morning, Chairman Norton, Commissioners. My name is Dave Trabert. I'm the President of Kansas Policy Institute, which is a Wichita-based nonprofit organization that is promoting transparency and economic freedom. We're here today to ask your assistance in helping taxpayers understand how their money is being spent. It's very simple. Last month, we sent an open records request to the Greater Wichita Economic Development Coalition requesting transaction-level details, essentially their checkbook. We wanted to see, as the county has provided, how the money has been spent, how the taxpayer money has been spent, not all of their money, just their taxpayer money. We believe Section 45-240B of the Kansas statutes makes this a requirement that it be available for public inspection. A former legislator who actually served on the committee developing this law has assured us that that was in fact the intent of the law the way that it is written. And there is a full explanation of that law and how we believe it should be interpreted in your packet there. GWEDC only provided summaries of overall spending, which was a commingling of their private and public sector funds. They provided no summary or detailed analysis of how taxpayer funds were spent. The statute clearly says each not-for-profit entity which receives public funds in the aggregated amount of $350 or more per year, and I believe in this case we're talking about $300,000, shall upon request make available to any requester a copy of documentation of the receipt and expenditure of such public funds received by such not-for-profit entity. If such not-for-profit entities' accounting practices do not segregate public funds from other sources, the not-for-profit public entity's entire accounting of its expenditures and receipts shall be open to the public. GWEDC denied our request. They say they interpret the law differently. They do not believe that the law compels them to make public how they spend taxpayers' funds, and so they will not make it public. Now, we've had no direct communication with GWEDC, I must add. All communication has come through their attorney. So for all we know, GWEDC may actually be using taxpayer funds to avoid disclosing how taxpayer funds are being spent. We don't know. We come before you today to ask if the county will ask GWEDC to provide the requested spending information and for you to make it public so that taxpayers understand how their money is being spent. And we're going to make this same request of City Council for GWEDC and for WDDC. As stated in a recent Kansas City Star article, Johnson County District Attorney Steve Howe says local governments are having trouble following the law when it comes to allowing the public access to meetings and to documents. Doug Anstadt, Executive Director of the Kansas Press Association, says the problem has become epidemic, and we agree. KPI has had to have district attorneys intervene on our behalf with the Kansas City and Lawrence school districts. They're now complying. Just yesterday, we had to file another complaint with the Sedgwick County District Attorney on the Wichita School District for failure to comply with an open records request. It is continuing to become more and more of an epidemic. Open records laws need to be substantially improved. Government and their so-called public-private partners should not be looking for excuses to avoid transparency. They should be fully supportive of transparency, and there should be specific mandatory penalties for failure to do so. When we take this issue up with the 2013 legislature, we hope to include Sedgwick County on the list of governments that do fully support transparency and allow the public access to see how their money is being spent. We ask that you would please ask GWEDC and others to provide information, detailed information on how they're spending taxpayers' money. Thank you. I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Commissioner Peter John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, let me begin by, you just mentioned WDDC and Wichita Downtown Development Corporation. Are the situations involving GWEDC and WDDC identical in your view, or are they a little bit different?
No, they are identical. We've had the identical correspondence. We understand that The county funds are not given to WDDC, and so we're only here to ask about GWEDAC. We will be in City Council shortly to ask for that both entities be asked to provide their information.
I appreciate that clarification. Let me just, for the record, go through and understood, because I have seen this article from the Kansas City Star about charges for public documents that are so high. The article mentions $11,000 in one case that was just obviously excessive. In terms of the point you're bringing here today, it's not a problem with Sedgwick County per se in terms of providing documents or providing documents at an excessive cost. It's strictly related to Greater Wichita Economic Development Coalition and Wichita Downtown Development Coalition, and not Sedgwick County.
That's right. It is not with Sedgwick County. This issue is specifically with GWEDAC and WDDC.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Renshaw.
Dave, thanks for coming today.
Sure.
I share your concerns about this, and I would like to see us add this issue to our legislative agenda, which we'll be discussing coming up in the not too distant future. Certainly, this needs to be open to the public, and I'd like to see us get similar information. So I appreciate you coming today, bringing this to our attention.
Commissioner Peter John.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Commissioner Renshaw in terms of adding this to our legislative agenda, and I'd be interested, obviously, in further public discussion, because we approved, if my memory's correct, Sedgwick County appropriated $300,000 as part of our 2013 budget for GWEDAC for next year, and so we've got a direct connection there. I don't believe we've had a direct appropriation to WDDC their expenditure that I can recall. And if I'm incorrect on either of those, I appreciate if anybody has that information or numbers. I'd like to make sure I've got the right information on that. But I believe there was a case involving the school finance lawsuit where the school districts were providing tax funds to a third party that was actually organizing the lawsuit. And Dave, do you know, are you familiar with that litigation at all? Because my recollection is that the courts ruled that the group that was behind the school finance lawsuit that was covered by the Open Meetings and Open Records Act, and I would see some similarities there between that situation and the situation you're describing.
Commissioner, I'm not an expert by any means on that. I am aware of that lawsuit. I do believe it was found that money, those expenditures, must be made public. There are some ongoing issues with whether or not the organization is complying with open meetings. But there has been some disclosure of that information, I believe, as a result of that hearing.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming down and sharing this in terms of, as opposed to just doing a receive and file. I tell my colleagues that what I'd like to take from this going forward is maybe putting on our agenda, particularly for GWEDAC, since they are receiving county funds, having a full public discussion so that GWEDAC representatives could come here and speak and present their perspective on it, because the one thing I have learned as a commissioner, when an issue comes up before us, there's always two sides.
And I would concur that would be an excellent thing to have take place. I think there needs to be a public discussion of what the public is entitled to see, because it is critical. There is a tremendous appetite. We take this information like we do with the county's checkbook, the county's payroll register, and other school districts, local governments, and state government, and put it on kansasopengov.org. That site has tremendous activity. It's on track to have over 1 million page views this year. Nothing is on there but government data. Taxpayers cannot make fully informed decisions unless they have all the facts, and especially in regards to these public-private partnerships, I believe, because there's been considerable public concern over how taxpayer money has been spent on some of these things, and they have a right, we believe, to see how their money is being spent. So I would encourage that public discussion. But I would also, again, ask you if you would please ask these organizations to provide you with detailed information. I do not believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that you require that at this point. But I would encourage you to ask them to show you how they're spending your money, our money, and then make that public. Thank you.
Commissioner Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, the information you gave us indicates that you got response from counsel of GWDC indicating that in their opinion and council's opinion that they have complied. Is that, am I understand? I didn't get a chance to read this.
That's right. They believe they have complied.
Okay. Thank you.
I would also add, Commissioner, that that is pretty routine. It's typical when governments, as indicated by what's been going on in Johnson County and our own experience, we've only had one case where a government entity just didn't respond. They do respond and say they don't believe they have to. They believe that they've complied with the law. And that's why we have to get the district attorneys involved. That's why we have to go to legislators, because it's pretty clear in most cases that they are not. I'll give you a couple of classic examples. The law, there's a directive from the Attorney General's office that came out in 2009 that said if a government entity has the capacity to produce information in the format requested, they are directed to do so. We have government entities, and this was the basis of one of those complaints, government entities saying that doesn't count. That doesn't count. We have another government entity saying, in the case of Wichita School District, they don't have to they believe they've complied because there's a comma missing where they think it should be in the statute. Governments should not be looking for excuses to not provide this information. Of course they're going to say that they believe they are in compliance with the law. That's good defense. The statute also says that it is the public policy of the state of Kansas that to have transparency and that records be open, and that these laws be liberally interpreted to reinforce that policy. That is not what's happening in many government entities across this state.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Ransall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, I appreciate this information. I agree. We need to be open about this, and we shouldn't be fighting the citizens who want to know this stuff. You shouldn't have to sue people. You shouldn't have to spend all this time and effort. It shouldn't be that difficult, in my estimation. Whether or not the law needs to be changed, is a different issue. But we can make this much easier by requiring this sort of disclosure to the public as a condition of our involvement in GWDC, and I think we should consider doing that. I mean, before we give them any money for next year, let's make sure they're prepared to publicly disclose that. If they're not willing to disclose how they're going to spend public dollars, then perhaps they shouldn't receive it. And I think that's something we should consider before we enter into an agreement for them next year. Thank you.
Commissioner Skelton.
Hey, Dave, thanks for coming down this morning. Certainly, this issue's been around for a while. I can remember other folks testifying when I was across the street here several years ago. And I do think that all entities need to comply with the law. So what the law is and what it says, what the specifics are, I think is something that I find is worthy for discussion with this commission. And if there's appropriate action that needs to be taken before we do anything else, we'll have to look into that. So those are my comments, sir.
Okay.
I do have a motion ready to go. It seems to me that we want to be sure that we understand the implications of moving this forward, because there's a lot of 501(c)(3)s that we might give money to that would have to now hire some legal, maybe do some things differently they do, and I want to be sure that we understand the unintended consequences for all the folks that we might give grants or money to. So I would entertain a motion to receive and file and take into advisement the substance of this request, so that as we move forward, what Dave has brought to us today is in the mix of all the things that we have to talk about on legislative platform, other policies, and how we deal with these issues as we go forward. That would be my motion.
I will second.
Okay, I have a second to receive and file and take this under advisement. Commissioner Peter John.
Mr. Chairman, I think you're heading in the right direction, but I'd like to be a little bit more specific, because I can think back, we've had folks from our finance office work with at least one 501c3 since I became a commissioner, and I know there's been audits involved in that. In terms of what we have the case here in terms of open meetings and open records, I'd like to maybe make as opposed to taking it under advisement and going forward that way, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we'd invite representative or representatives from GWEDAC to come in and have a dialogue in terms of what should or shouldn't be covered on this issue in particular. And I think at the staff level we can talk about in terms of what we require for all entities, because I agree with you that they're in terms of what we require for disclosure, but I know when county funds get distributed, there are auditing requirements that get required, and even though we don't audit certain institutions in this country, I mean, I think back to when we said Congress's books could not be audited, and there's people who want to audit the Federal Reserve, but in the case of disclosure and how the public funds that we're responsible for are handled, I would cite the fact that I think we need to have a motion that we take up this item and invite the folks from GWEDAC in and get their side of the story too, because I firmly believe there's always two sides to the story, and I'd like to hear their response and get a dialogue on this, because open meetings and open records are very important to this commissioner, and that's my suggestion. I don't know whether I'll get a second or not, but that's my thought.
Commissioner Henshaw.
Just for clarification, does your motion include all the items that Commissioner Norton included as well, and then you've added on that?
Well, I think that's a good starting point.
And then I'll second your motion.
It seems to me like the chairman's motion included Commissioner Peterjohn's motion. I mean, it allows for that. As we go forward and take it under advisement, we can determine how we want to proceed with any dialogue. So I'm comfortable with the chairman's motion because I think it provides for your request.
Well, we have a motion, a substitute motion. Unless you're going to withdraw it, we'll move forward to vote on that unless there's some other discussion. At this point, I'll call the vote on the substitute motion.
Commissioner Unruh?
No.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ransaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Skelton?
Aye.
Chairman Norton?
Aye. We'll move ahead with what we've got, and I will invite members of GWDC to visit with us, although I sit on the GWDC steering committee, so I'm pretty aware of a lot of the things that go on and we talk about, but we'll invite them to come and visit with us at some point. Commissioner Skelton.
I just would like to concur with you. I didn't look at your motion as being less than Commissioner Peterjohn's, but I think that the intent is the same here, and we're going to follow up on this accordingly.
Okay.
Chairman Norton, thank you very much. I appreciate the making it clear that the Commission is proactively requesting a discussion on this information, and I would be happy to be part of that discussion perhaps as a taxpayer representative. I could also, and I appreciate your concern that requiring this type of disclosure may increase cost, but as an accountant, I can assure you that should not be the case. This is a simple matter of assigning a different account number to an expenditure so that it's very simple to track those separately. That's really all this amounts to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Madam Clerk, call the next item.